until I can actually see it on YouTube. Come on. A little bit of a delay. Come on. There's a lot of delay. There we go. Okay. They can see you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our July edition of the Family Forum. We're coming to you live from the lobby of the Pine House for the first time. All our previous presentations, we've been sitting in front of our laptops. So because we're doing this for the first time, we're working out a few bugs, so hopefully you can hear us and see us well. Let us know if it's a problem. So I am joined tonight by Kenzie Keefe, who is our graduate intern who's been with us since May. And I'm going to turn it over to Kenzie for a bit so you can tell us about your background and your experience and the program at UNH.
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Kenzie Keefe. I'm a graduate student currently at the University of New Hampshire. I'm studying in the dual degree Master of Social Worker and Master of Science Kinesiology program, which is an adventure therapy program. So together makes the dual degree program. Yeah, and I've come here after started grad school after 6 years in wilderness therapy, where I really grew to love the use of kinesthetic and nature-based therapy modalities. And so, yeah, I came back to grad school and in that became a little bit more interested in the continuum of care. So what are the different steps that people take from an intensive intervention level of care to community care? So I found myself here with Daryl and Andy and Jackie, who all have also worked in similar fields and are now in the community programming. So.
Okay, so when I hear adventure therapy, I think of outward bound wilderness treatment, but that's not necessarily really what we're talking about here. I mean, that's part of the bigger picture. So can you tell us a little bit more about adventure therapy, experiential therapy, and how it gets utilized in a setting like this?
Yeah, so a little bit of my personal background that ties into that. So wilderness therapy isn't super accessible to a lot of people, right? It takes a lot of time, people go out for months, and my interest drew towards community care because all of the same tenets can really be applied in a community setting. And so when we're saying adventure therapy can happen anywhere. It can happen in an office setting, it happens here in the Pine House, and might happen a little bit on this stream this evening as well. But adventure therapy is really the intentional use of activities alongside metaphor that kind of it creates an experience for folks to look at their situation or their challenges, what they're dealing with, just from a different lens. So really it is utilizing activities, but it's in an intentional and thoughtful manner, which also integrates kind of the common modalities such as CBT, DBT, and ACT is actually really quite fitting with the experiential therapy.
Okay, and so with our population here, we see a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And with anxiety comes some challenges with getting stuck in your own head and getting caught up in your own thoughts.
Right.
And one of the basic tenets of ACT is being in the present moment and mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And so adventure therapy, experiential therapy can be helpful with helping people move from one to the other. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. Yeah, so I think one of the really special things when we put a challenge in front of someone is that you're physically, kinesthetically engaged with what's in front of you. And so it's really challenging for the excess chatter, the kind of the challenging thoughts that come up and contribute to anxiety and contribute to maybe our experiential avoidances, because we're just we're in the activity physically. So we kind of have to be present to move through it, which is really great for our members, because there's not as much opportunity to feed into when our body is maybe just sitting and talking about what's going on. We can really get drawn into the narrative, and it's hard to get out of it. But with the physical activities, I'd love to give an example of what that might look like for someone.
Okay, please do.
So I'm thinking of a couple of weeks ago, I did a activity with the group, which is called Stepping Stones. It's a classic, and it always brings up different things for folks. And so the challenge is to utilize these stepping stones, these small pieces. Each person has one, to travel across their journey at onward transitions. And that stepping stone turns into their value. So each person has a value that they place on the ground, and they have to work together with one another to traverse their experience at onward transitions. And so now their value is on the ground, and they're holding on to each other and kind of shuffling through the great room, trying to complete the activity. In that activity, it's really challenging to be anywhere but the present moment. And this activity kind of serves as a diffusion to the other things that might come up. A lot of the same behaviors come up for folks. When we sat down and talked about it afterwards, people were saying, well, I didn't want to let go of my value because I knew that might mean I have to start over. Both literally and figuratively, right? Like, if they stepped off of it into the unknown, the whole group might actually have to start the activity over. But in a figurative sense, when they let go of their values, they're moving backwards in their process towards completing the program or getting towards whatever goal that they're working on currently.
Or the committed actions that we're trying to help them achieve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
if you can picture that.
Okay. What are the origins of adventure therapy? When did this kind of start?
It started even before a lot of people think it did. Early when the camp revolution happened. So New Hampshire and Maine actually ended up being like these destinations where families sent their kids off to summer camps, and they would come back from summer camp and people were like, wow, they're doing so well. Like things, maybe they got done a challenging year at school, and kids would return from summer camp like more confident or feeling better than they did when they left. And that was kind of like the spark to like, what's happening at summer camp? And one of the things is it was happening, up here in this beautiful region of the Northeast. Usually kids from like Massachusetts and the cities coming up. But also they were having like these facilitated activity all the time. And so that's when things like it kind of developed into Outward Bounds and personal development through leadership, and then wilderness has also grown alongside that. But people started to realize these activities have more to them than just play. Mm-hmm. They're fun, and people are able to relate to them in another way. And so people began, putting a little bit more thought and intention, like therapeutic techniques alongside the activities, and metaphor is really the big intentional piece, I think, of a lot of the adventure therapy activities. But that, in a general sense, does it?
Yeah, and so summer camps in Maine have been around since the early 1900s.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily thought of as adventure therapy
Yeah.
120 years ago.
Right.
But somewhere along the line, as you said, they started to recognize the therapeutic value in doing these things with more intention.
Yeah, and I think in the 60s is where a lot of people would say that the Outward Bounds and the Project Adventures, where people are taking corporate groups into do challenge activities and team building, and we're like, wow, we're seeing a lot of behavior change and emotional growth through these experiences, and so I think that's probably where the coin adventure therapy would become more known.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So today, this afternoon, Kenzie and two of our other staff floated the Presumpscot River with 5 of our members. They were all in inner tubes. And I wonder what you experienced out there with them. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. We didn't prepare for this, but was there some of this going on out there today, you think?
Yeah, I think whenever we take people off-site intentionally, there's a lot of therapeutic benefit to that, and I think of from weeks ago when we started to say, hey, are you guys interested in getting out and doing something new together? And then people started to jump on, and then there's a planning process. Like, okay, if we want to do something like this, what has to happen to get us there, to actually get us to the river? And there is a lot of planning that goes into that. There's tubes, there's sunscreen, snacks, all the things, driving, shuttling. That's a lot of executive functioning logistics. So that in the base of our program, I think is just inherent in doing recreation. Mm-hmm. And as far as the process of more adventure therapy, I think getting on the river and just being together and people feeling the sun and having good positive social connection and like positive conversation along the way, and taking from it like what that positive social connection is for them. Mm-hmm. For our members that are challenged with anxiety, social anxiety, these planning skills, like that was, it was filtered with, or kind of glittered with a lot of therapeutic benefit.
Okay, so on one level, they were all having a ball out there today.
Yeah.
But at another level, there was some intentionality in terms of how this whole thing was organized and executed and what they were experiencing out there today.
Yeah. Yeah, and you asked me the other day, like, what do the members feel? What kind of feel do you get from people when you're bringing out one of your activities? And it's challenging because some of them have done similar things and some of them haven't. And there's often like not a reluctance, but a little bit of like a humor that's in the air around like, oh gosh, what's Kenzie got in her back pocket today? Like, what are we gonna do here? And I think that's partially because some of the activities feel like fun. And people are like, well, therapy's not fun. Yes, it is. It can be. And that's part of the magic of the activity and really shifting the perspective that like, oh, I just saw myself in a different light doing some maybe behaviors I've never done before, stepping up as a leader in an activity where like, hey, you said you never have your voice heard, and I really heard your voice today. So in one sense, it gives this like kind of like mysterious fun feel. And then in the other, by the time we're sitting down talking about the experience, people are drawing on really interesting connections that they have to the goals that they're working on here, and even more in their personal life and beyond. So
sure, and I think there's a degree of uncertainty that what does Kenzie have in her back pocket today, right? Which can create that level of anxiety.
Yeah.
So these become exposures.
Absolutely.
To sit with the discomfort of not knowing. A therapeutic conversation can be fairly predictable for people that have been exposed to it, right? But introducing these activities creates an uncertainty that they have to sit with.
Yeah.
So that in itself is particularly for folks with anxiety, a therapeutic exposure, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've talked about my months here now, and it took a while to be able to step into a group and have the trust and rapport with folks to say, okay, we're going to do something a little different today, because it does take trust and rapport, and for them to think that I'm competent. Like, okay, whatever she's going to do, I think is going to be okay, so I'll try it.
Yeah.
Which has taken time. So.
Right. And for them to let go of the reins enough to, okay, I'm going to try this because I trust Kenzie in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
So, we've talked some about how you would utilize this in group activities, group settings. How do you work this into, what might be a more traditional individual therapy session?
I'm happy that you asked.
I'm afraid
and I brought some things to help visualize this, because in all reality, as much as I can talk and try to describe what happened in an activity, it's much easier to see. It's even easier to feel when you're doing it yourself. So to start, since for those of you who are watching, this is one that you can participate in as well. And Jackie, I hope I see your finger go up too. But I'm going to ask you to take whatever hand you'd like and point your finger to the sky or to the ceiling, and start to draw a clock, counterclockwise, a circle.
Counterclockwise?
Sure. Counterclockwise, a circle in the air. As you do this, I'm going to tell you to bring your finger down to eye level. You're still going counterclockwise, still going counterclockwise. Up in the air, Andy. Bring it down to your collarbones and down to where you can actually see on top. What way are you going?
Yeah, this is magical. You and I did this the other day, and it really
You
threw
just
me off.
switched.
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Which
I
way are you
well,
going
now?
now?
It's going clockwise. I started with counterclockwise up
And you're
here.
going?
So.
Okay, try it again. Maybe, do you need to try it again? So you're just going to start counterclockwise.
Bring it down.
Bring it down.
You can play along at home, folks.
You can only get this when you actually do it. And that's it.
Yes.
To me, that's adventure therapies. It's flipping the script a bit. It's changing the perspective. When your finger is up here, we were going counterclockwise, and when it came down here, it was going clockwise.
The perspective changed.
Yeah, the perspective changed, and the activities here allow us to feel that, to feel a change and see something different than we do when we're talking and we're into our heads.
Right.
So
for everybody at home, this notion of the uncertainty of these anxieties can create a little anxiety, which is an exposure. I'm having that right now. I usually had this little
battery
package of
tricks.
goodies back there. Yes. So go ahead.
So harm reduction is one of the things that we work with here at Onward Transition. Excuse me. Just drink some water. So as a CAP, that's often it's finding balance within members' lives, and this can be around all sorts of different things. And so this is kind of a neat activity that's both active and metaphoric representative of what that might look like for someone. So I might ask Andy if we were working on harm reduction, and say with things around base wellness.
Okay.
I would ask you to name, maybe I'd say, pick 3 of these.
Pick 3 of these things.
Yeah, start with 3.
Okay.
And I'm wondering what the 3 most important things in your harm reduction that you're working on right now. Things that you're trying to find balance on.
Okay. And you want me to share this right now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so healthy eating, not grazing all day long like I sometimes do here. Regular exercise, and I'm going to say going to bed and not falling asleep in the recliner with the TV on.
Awesome. Now, I'm going to ask that you make a structure out of those, with one on top of the other.
Okay.
Okay. Sweet. That seemed like it was pretty easy. So I'm
It's going to
curious.
get harder, isn't it?
I'm curious with these other couple,
Mm-hmm.
what are some other things that you would like to be working on?
Harm reduction in the interest of keeping my life in balance.
Keeping your life in balance. Yep.
Okay.
Things that might be even harder than
Sure.
what you just put here.
Sure. Well, certainly paying attention to my consumption of beer. Do I put that up there too, or?
Let's try to put it up there.
Okay. And now this one?
Yeah. And I'm going to challenge you to put these on one of the smaller sides.
Huh. Okay. All right, so this one would be taking more time to just be with my wife and to spend less time working and feeling like I have to be productive all the time.
Finding a balance between
Yes.
work life and personal life.
Yes.
What did it feel like putting the last one on top there?
It felt a little iffy, like I wasn't sure if it was gonna stay.
How could that relate to finding balance?
Sure.
The activity generally.
Yeah, well, I mean, the activity generally is, it's fairly easy for me for the things more at the base.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can pay better attention to it.
Right.
Okay, and keep that stuff in balance. The finding that balance between work and leisure or just relaxation, that probably is the hardest thing for me to find, just because I seem to work a lot.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was the harder one to put in place.
Yeah. So, simple, quick, in this moment. There are all sorts of ways to use this exact activity with harm reduction, with other things we're finding balance in life. There's really little sides of this. So I could have challenged Andy right from the beginning to start on a really challenging side, but that's exactly it, is that this could go so many different ways with one person or another, and the activity hopefully speaks for itself a lot of the times, and some of the times they don't need to. It can be an internal, mindful, experiential process that happens within someone, but easiest to do when you can feel it.
So we might be in an individual session,
Mhm.
and as the client, I'm talking about harm reduction or life in balance, and for whatever reason, I'm sort of getting stuck,
Yep.
or just not being able to, really fully engage in that conversation.
Yeah.
That might be a time to utilize something like this, just
Yeah.
to change perspective, change the dialogue, the conversation.
Yeah. Yep. To change the focus of also when you put those things that you're working on these blocks,
Yeah.
it's a little bit less inside you, right? It's detaching or diffusing ourselves from the challenge, so we can see them in a different manner.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. a lot of people get to see ropes and fun, fluffy balls that we toss around, and so.
We're not doing that, right?
No, I don't think we have enough time to go into too many more, but yeah, as much fun and play as it all seems, hope is there's also
Sure.
some payoff too.
Yeah. And as we've talked before, you know, this is much more process focused, the process of what's going on than the content itself.
Yeah.
You know, in the same way that we talk about doing play therapy, it's much more about process than content and paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Okay. Well, any other parting thoughts about adventure therapy, its application here, how receptive members have been to it?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say it's been really fun, the moments when I've gotten to work with folks and see a different side of them through a physical activity. I think that there's a lot of power in allowing people to show a different side of themselves and see a different side of themselves, which especially some of our folks that are really quiet in groups, they have a really different presence in an activity like this, or like the ones I've shared. So yeah, looking forward to bringing more in my final time here, and yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions or talk more with folks about it if this sparked curiosity or interest in what is that all about.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you for being here with us this summer, and thank you for joining me tonight. So that about wraps things up for us tonight. I want to thank Jackie Roberts, my fellow clinician, for running the board and being our IT specialist behind the curtain here. And we will be back in about a month, and we'll send a message out just to let everybody know when we'll have the next family forum. So thank you for joining us, and have a good evening. Thanks.